All right, looks like we're live and recording. So I'll just start with the, okay, thank you, Mark. The right to know meeting checklist. As chair of the planning board, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis and in accordance with Governor Sununu's emergency order number 12, pursuant to executive order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing the Zoom platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through the Zoom platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the phone number 603-236-4730 or by clicking on the website address www.watervillevalley.org. B, we're providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of how to access the meeting using Zoom, and instructions are provided on the Town of Waterville Valley's website at www.watervillevalley.org. C, we're providing a mechanism for the public to alert this public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 603-236-4730 or email at townofwv@watervillevalley.org. D, we're adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access it. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn it and have it rescheduled at that time. And please note that all votes are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. So let's start with our roll call attendance. As before, we'll go through alphabetically. Nancy? Oh, and I'm sorry, just please reiterate if you have any members of the public with you. Thank you.
Nancy Knight, member.
Mike? Oops, you're muted, Mike.
Mike Capel, member.
Bill Larson? Don't see Bill. Had we heard that he'd be unable to attend?
I have not heard anything, and he is not in the waiting room.
Okay. Wendy Rothgaber, member. John?
John Racine, member, alone.
Rich?
Rich Rita, select board ex officio, alone.
Bill Spence?
Bill Spence, member, alone.
Terry?
Terry Wade, alternate, alone.
Rob?
Rob Wilson, alternate.
All righty.
Bill joined.
Bill's okay. Thank you. Oh, there he is. Okay. Well, mark Bill as present. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Let's start in with reviewing the minutes from our previous meeting from March 11th. Anyone have any corrections, clarifications? I had a general question for the board. Do we want these minutes to reflect the order in which the conversation occurred or follow the order of the agenda? It's written following the order of the agenda. However, I took the opportunity to review last month's meeting on the YouTube, and I don't know. I couldn't.
There's a disconnect. There's a disconnect.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it followed the actual order of reality. Does anybody have an issue with that?
I think it's a good idea to follow the order of reality, because it may be that at some point in time, something comes up in a conversation that is used or referred to in a later conversation, and it would work right that way, where the agenda might mix it up.
That's a good point. All right, so if we could do it that way in the future. Oh, sorry to interrupt the minutes discussion. but Nick is going to be absent for a good part of this meeting, so he did request that any members of the public who are present, just please put your name in the comment section so that he would be able to have that information when he's doing the minutes. Line 71, just a little clarification. B. Spence inquired whether additional safety would be required. I believe, or additions safety, I believe it should be additional safety measures or precautions would be required. Line 96, the letter in opposition to detached cottages was submitted by a neighbor, not an abutter. And I think it would read better if several members of the planning board liked the proposed cottages as opposed to several members said the board liked the cottages. I think people were speaking for themselves. And then line 125, I don't believe we need, we're saying the planning board agreed that having any applicant, I think just agreed that any applicant can strike having. Any other thoughts? Everyone's had time to read through the minutes. We're all good there. Okay, well, then entertain a motion.
I move we accept the minutes as amended.
I'll second, Wendy.
Alrighty, so all in favor, Nancy,
Nancy Knight, yes.
Mike,
Mike Capel, yes.
Bill,
Yes.
myself, Wendy Rathgeber, yes. John,
John Racine, yes.
Rich,
Rich Rita, yes.
Bill, Spence.
Yes.
Great, thanks everyone. So, then with that, moving on, and we will mess with the agenda order again, as we do have our continued public hearing for the planned unit development from Ben Legary. So we will shuffle that to the beginning. You done? Good. Hi.
Hi.
Morning.
All right. Good morning. So yeah, I guess we're here again to propose another plan unit development, hoping to get a conditional use permit on the new design. After the last meeting, we kind of all made a decision and a realization that that route is not going to work based on interpretations of, town council, everybody's opinion. Just didn't seem like it was going to work. So we kind of went back to the drawing board and looked for a middle ground based on everything that the feedback and the interpretation from town council on how that ordinance is written and what it allows. We try to design something just specifically within the ordinance as interpreted. So we kind of went back to the drawing board and kind of tried to attempt to get a position between, the by right one multifamily building and, what I proposed back last June or whatever it was, or I can't even remember now, between the two buildings. I think it was 4 and 5 units. This new one is pretty similar in width. It's a little bit wider, but these units are 16 feet wide. The original building was like 20 to 21 feet wide. So although more units, not a ton less more width, but the kicker, what kind of made it real for us that this could actually be a pursuable venture is the idea to turn the face of the buildings to face downtown. That was our biggest hindrance in the beginning, is we just did not want the backsides of a building that didn't really have a face to the town going there. But after the idea of turning them and adding a driveway, it seemed to kind of work. And this seems to be, based on feedback, the only logical direction to go with this. So at this point, I'm here with my representative, Nick Cracknell, and also I have my build partners on here. So David Daly and Jonathan Miller from Daly General Contracting. We've done a lot of big projects with them, great builders. So they're more than qualified to get this done and get it done fast. So with that, I'll hand it off to Nick. I think he did a little presentation.
Is it possible I could share my screen?
We should be able to get that.
I'm working on that right now, Nick. Hold
Okay,
on
thank
just a
you.
Second.
No, just to clarify, because I see we have a number more members of the public than we've had in the past. Nick, are the cottages, you're just sort of leaving those by the wayside for now?
Yeah, we've as Ben said, taken another pass, obviously looked at the feedback from the board, looking at the ordinance, Tara's feedback, as well as town council, and come up with an alternative PUD plan. So it's our intention to substitute this new plan that was submitted with the 3 buildings versus the 6 and 7 units that was presented over the last 2 meetings.
Nick, you can share now.
Okay, thank you. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So again, for the record, Nick Cracknell, working with Ben on this project, and a whole slate of other folks on the design team, and now Dave Daly partnering with Ben to do the build out of the site. So you're all, let me see here. It's not advancing. Why is that? Let me stop sharing and do it again. All right, I'm going to switch to a PowerPoint because that is, for some reason, my slides are not advancing here. Apologies for that.
No worries. Technology is always super helpful till it's not. And we appreciate
Hey.
making the adjustments as we go through this crazy year.
Okay, let's try again. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Brian, how about that? Still that?
Yep.
All right, let's try to get to slide 2. Good. So as Ben said, the team is largely made up of Dave Daly and Ben doing the design of the buildings as well as the build out. I'm helping with the permitting. We're likely to work with Horizon Engineering to prepare the sort of definitive engineering plan that's needed to complete this process. Bill Nolan from Savoy Architects has done the building design. We've done something very similar together in Salisbury with Dave and Ben. So we are modifying those designs for this site. But we've worked together in the recent past. Howard Snyder's doing the landscape architecture that'll again be integrated into the final plan. And Derek Durbin, who may or may not be on the line here, he had a appointment this morning, but I think he's going to hop on. He is the attorney representing the team. All right, so as Ben said, what we're really trying to do here is come up with a PUD plan or a layout that does have multiple principal buildings, not 6 anymore with 7 units that might run afoul of the ordinance and the density use and development standards requirement for the village commercial district. So we're trying to come up with something that we do think this meets the dimensional and density and use requirements of the ordinance for this district. So we want to present this revised layout and demonstrate that it complies with the code requirements. So the site you can see there on the right-hand side of that image, it's about a 1.1 acre site. And again, we're trying to look at all the requirements of the code and make sure what we've got here is a much cleaner project that better aligns itself with the requirements of the code than the cottage, the detached cottage plan that was giving us trouble with being compliant. So we'd like to start construction in July of this year and have hopefully get to occupancy by the end of the year. So we're trying to push over this hump and get the PUD potentially approved so we can file the definitive site plan and get that approved so we can get under construction in the middle of the summer. So again, it's about a 45,000 square foot a parcel made up of 2 parcels. And the land's currently vacant. It's got frontage on Valley Road and Golden Heights Road, and it's part of a larger subdivision that was recently approved for the Waterville company. So the zoning ordinance here in respect to the requirements, it's in the Village Commercial District. I think everybody knows that by now. It allows singles, twos, and multifamily uses in the district, and the minimum lot sizes, sorry, not for Engle, but single and 2-family uses is a ½ acre. There is no minimum lot size for a multifamily building, which is made up of 3 or more units. The lot coverage is no more than 25% of the site. And again, it's for single and 2-family uses. The ordinance is silent on what the coverage requirements are for multis. The building height is normally 35 feet for singles and twos, but it's allowed to be up to 45 feet for a multifamily use. And the dimensional setbacks are essentially 20 feet on all sides, unless you're up against a right-of-way where it's 35 feet. The topography of the site, it's relatively flat along that darker line, that private access driveway that's just to the, I guess, the east of the 2 parcels in this area. It's fairly flat up here and then has a moderate slope moving down towards Valley Road and Golden Heights. In terms of the neighborhood context, there's the site in here. You know, like a lot of Waterville Valley, there's still a lot of undeveloped interior space that gives the community relief from the development. But this is a single family, sort of larger footprint, larger volume units than some of the other areas further away that have large multifamily structures. There is one multifamily just to the rear of the site, but it's largely a single family detached neighborhood on that side of Valley Road in the vicinity of the property. Clearly forested areas. The golf course is just here, the town square across the road, the pond, Cochrane Pond in here. So it's really at the gateway to the village center of Waterville Valley. So as the chair pointed out, and everybody has looked at this plan for at least 2 meetings, if not 3, in one fashion or another, this was our original idea for a PUD development plan, and we were originally pursuing this as still being a multifamily development because those 6 structures were on one lot. And many communities do define the use of the lot as to what's located on top of it. And there are 7 units in this project on one lot. But we ran into a host of sort of planning and legal issues that you're all well aware of, but just to re-enumerate them, there were concerns that these are largely single-family detached cottages. There is 1 2-family and 5 singles, that they ran afoul of the code because a single family is defined in the code as requiring a ½ acre of land, and the underlying density in the village commercial district requires the ½ acre. Therefore, this does not comport with that requirement, given there are 6 structures and 5 singles and 1 double, all requiring a ½ acre. So there was a question of whether a PUD could even be issued without some kind of zoning amendment or zoning relief to address that issue. The use factor there, the second item on that list, is really embedded in the density and how they toggle back and forth. We didn't have a great deal of neighborhood opposition. There was certainly one person that submitted the letter that was read into the record, concerned about precedent, concerned about the project that had been denied several years earlier, and whether this was consistent with the requirements of the zoning ordinance of Waterville Valley. So we did talk at the end of the last meeting, you all know, about potential amendments and the timing involved with coming back next year, waiting a year, dealing with potentially, we didn't spend a lot of time talking about a dimensional variance, but it probably was an option, but and then worst case, litigating this to defend either your decision to support it or ours to continue forward. When we looked at the issues raised and the potential remedies, that were at least discussed on top of opinions from town council and the planner, Tara. It seemed very clear this wasn't a pathway we were comfortable moving forward with all the risks inherent with those potential remedies. So that's why we've come up with a revised PUD development plan that's, we believe, more consistent with what at least the code says you're looking for in the village commercial district. So there's 13 units in here and 3 principal buildings. This is a single. Then there are 2 6-unit buildings. The units are 16 feet wide. There is a single garage and interior parking space to each unit. If you look at the rendering at the elevation at the bottom of the image, that's the view from Valley Road. So there's 3 floors of living. This would be 2 units here, 2. So you can see those are the 2 6-unit buildings shown on the bottom. There's a single family and a multi, so that's the proposed use of the property. The permitting vehicle is the planned unit development, and that's simply because we want to separate these 3 buildings with a small gap to provide some massing relief to the scale of the building. It is possible to join them all and not need a PUD, but this is really the only benefit being requested under the PUD, in contrast to an as-of-right development that does not require the PUD. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that, is to connect those 3 building forms. So we believe it meets the density requirements, the use requirements, and the dimensional requirements of the district itself, the village center. In respect to the findings, it's obviously a different housing option in this neighborhood to have the 2 6-unit townhouse design along Valley Road. We meet the open space requirements of the PUD. It does integrate the land use on the property, and it's better massing and character and building design than the as of right, which is he put in here for an illustration of how one would attach those 3 buildings into one larger building. This is 12 units across, and there's 15 units in this, so it's a little bit larger. There are 2 additional units added because the gaps are gone. The single turned into 2, and a unit was added into the gap here. And there is a connector, a condition space between the end of the building here and the main section along Valley Road. So we believe this meets the density and use requirements as well as the ordinance. And it's a little bit higher density, but should be consistent with the code requirements. So the open space, going back to our revised PUD plan, the open space is about 47% of the site, where 20 is required, and the building coverage is 22%. The building height is about 38.5 feet. There are 32 parking spaces here, so an excess of parking, enough for each unit to have 2 spaces plus 4 or 5 visitor spaces or shared spaces. And the townhouse units are 2,000 square feet plus in those 3 levels above the garage. And there's obviously the requirement and the existing easement for public access on the multi-use trail. So this last slide. So yeah, we're here to get feedback on this alternative PUD plan, listen to public comment, and hopefully gain approval shortly on the plan we're going to be moving forward with, so we can file for next month a more definitive engineered plan in order to get under construction in the summer. So that's it for me at this point.
Okay, thank you, Nick.
Wendy, this is Tom Myrick. May I have some time to speak?
Go right ahead, Tom.
Moose Run, I'm speaking on behalf of the Moose Run Association. I'm the treasurer.
Actually, can I interrupt you for a second, Tom? Nick, would you mind
Yes. No, I don't.
Sorry,
Am I
go
all
ahead.
set to go?
Thank you.
I'm the treasurer of the Moose Run Homeowners Association, and I'm speaking on behalf of the many neighbors I've spoken to regarding this project. We are not in favor of the proposed project. It's large. It's not continuous with the neighborhood and so forth. We are in favor of the 6-unit development that we saw before that apparently doesn't fit the town regulations. Bill Spence made an impassioned speech about following the vote of the people last week, which caused me to remind ourselves that the dilemma we're looking at now is there are 3 lots that are utilizing land on Golden Heights Road. The town voted to assume Golden Heights Road in 2008. Somewhere along the line that never got executed, and consequently the planning board agreed to a subdivision that effectively sold town land. Now, since then, things have been taken care of to cause that not to be a problem. But had you not voted to override the vote of the people in 2008, we wouldn't have 3 lots in 36, 1, 2, and 3. We'd only have 2. So in many respects, the problem we've created was created by the planning board by selling town land. So the Moose Run folks would much rather have the planning board ignore the will of the people again and put the 6-unit development on, which is much more contiguous with our neighborhood. We are a 40 lot single family home development, with the exception of the last 5.5 acres that the town decided they wanted to leave as VC when they converted all the rest of the lots to lower density residential. So the small condominium existing didn't bother us, fit right in with the land. But as we stand now, all of the land except the ones we're talking about are either developed, under development, or owned by an abutter who's not anxious to see this extra large building. So with all due respect to the desire to hold true to the exact zoning regulations, I think we've disregarded the vote of the town people twice now. And I don't see the reason why we can't go back to the 6 buildings and just build something that looks appropriate in the neighborhood.
Okay.
So Moose Run is not at all happy about the proposed 38-foot tall edifice right on the road, right at the entrance to the. So I agree with the land planner. I agree with the developer. It would look much better with the 6 units. And if that's an issue with the planning, I think I doubt anyone's going to sue anyone. Now, Tara, I have a question for you on the current item we're looking at. I see a dumpster enclosure in the upper left-hand corner of the current proposal. Is a dumpster enclosure a structure by definition?
Wendy, had you opened the public hearing?
Yes.
So you'll want questions to be directed to you, I assume.
Okay.
Wendy, could you ask Tara to interpret the ordinance on the VC ordinance on page 12 of the March 20th recent revision,
Go ahead, Tara.
March 10th, 2020. Please, could you please interpret, is a structure, is a dumpster enclosure a structure?
I don't have the zoning open in front of me, but I did have some conversation with Ben and Nick about that. And as long as my recollection is as long as it's more like a fence, then it's consistent with the zoning where it is, where it's shown on the plan.
Have you any idea? Have you any idea how close that is to Lost Pass Road?
So this is a concept plan for a planned unit development, and what the planning board would be approving is basically having 3 buildings on the lot. The details, like whether the dumpster meets the setbacks or whatnot, would be addressed at the point where they get their site plan and subdivision approval, which is the next step. This is a concept plan, so we're not looking at those fine points of the details. But my sense was that what they showed does comply with the zoning. And they did, and we had some interaction between meetings, and they made a couple tweaks in response to my input.
Well, I find it odd that concrete in the ground with a fence around it is not a structure.
Okay. Well, as
So
Tara said,
let's before we move on to the rest of the, I said my piece on what Moose Run would like to see. And I've said my piece on our ability to follow what the town has decided in the past with town votes. But in looking, Ben, in looking at that structure, that dumpster will be incredibly visible to everyone coming down Moose Run, and especially the neighbor who's about to build next door.
Yeah. So that's that is the number one difficult, where placement, because we are, again, this has been the difficulty of this lot completely from day one, because I'm literally on the border of downtown multifamily zone versus single families behind me. And then I'm stuck with, where do you put the dumpster? Because what's the back of the lot? There is no back. So I could put it at the end of the bottom driveway. I have that on a location. I thought up top would be more hidden, because I could probably, there's trees and there's a lot more buffer. But, there's pretty much two locations, and it's either in the front or the back. And that was the best of the two evils, I thought. So
why do you need a dumpster at all?
It's going to be a disaster if we don't. It's just people not being up there all the time, getting their trash. In a condo complex, to not have a dumpster, what ends up happening is people have trash, they put it outside. I don't know I'm sure you've probably seen this, but if they have friends over and their trash is starting to fill up, they're not going to, in the middle of a dinner party, drive downtown. So what they do is they start piling the trash outside their front door until they leave for the weekend. And that's going to bring bears and problems. So in a condo complex, if you don't have one, it's just going to end up disaster. So it's unnecessary.
Okay, and I just want to remind everybody that if the board chooses to grant the conditional use permit today, there's not even a guarantee of so many units. That they still, as a next step, need to show that this plan is consistent with the zoning, the subdivision regulations, and the site plan review regulations. So that's really the point at which we would talk in that kind of details about a dumpster. This is just a concept plan for a planned unit development, which, as Nicholas pointed out in the beginning, what they're asking for in this permit is the ability to have 3 buildings on the lot.
Yeah, I don't mind hashing out the details, to be honest with you, because just, we obviously have investors behind us. They've kind of put the next winter, and, we kind of have to, hopefully at the next board meeting get somewhere. So if this isn't going to work, we'd rather know now, before we kind of take another meeting step, because, that's, so if there's,
right. And I did get back to you with my opinion that it complies with the zoning.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That worked. So that's kind of, this isn't, I started off the project on kind of emotion. It started as my house, kind of started, what do I think would look best there? After the zoning, didn't really read that way. I still don't quite agree, but I'm okay with it. I have now multiple partners. I have investors. I have a build partner. We kind of got to go the direction the way it's written. Unfortunately, it's written one way. There may be a desire to be another way. And that's something for the future that I strongly think the town may want to think about. Right now, it's clearly written. And, it's not that we're the new people. And it's this neighborhood was VC. And, I've been in neighborhoods where we've changed our own zone before, but it was originally intended to be this way. And that's the way, after 6 months of looking at this, it's written. It is written for multifamily. So we'll see. I think this is probably a better plan. I would rather see separation between the buildings. I think it's a good plan based on what is written in the zoning code as it sits today. But yeah, the small details like the dumpster, I mean, I would leave it up to the neighbors. I would say top or bottom, I'm okay either way, but no dumpster, I think, is going to be something that everybody regrets and is going to become a problem. So I think it's the better of good, the two evils. So.
Right. And that's still a detail that would be worked out in the
Yep.
future. Mark, I believe you had your hand raised.
Are you okay? Did you call on me, Wendy?
Yes. Did you have your hand raised?
We will work with the developer. The dumpster enclosure for that many units is going to be a necessity. So we need to figure out where it is. The central transfer station right now, given the number of single family homes that we have in the town, is overrun at some points during the seasons, the high seasons. So adding 13 additional residences using the central would not work the way we're structured right now. So like I said, we will work with the developer to figure out the best place for the enclosure, but from a town standpoint, we would want a dumpster enclosure as part of this development.
And just so you guys know, we did reach out to DPW. I had a talk with them on how their trucks work. That's why the trash room didn't work. They said they will not roll out dumpsters. They actually have a standard spec for their dumpster enclosures, the dimension, size, they're actually wooden fences, and exactly where they want them. They have to pull directly into them, or I think it's reverse into them or something.
That's right.
They have to straight launch it and then come straight out. So there's really only two locations at the end of each driveway. Luckily, we have two driveways, so we are able to choose whether it's down by Valley Road or up near the corner. I just had to make a decision, but that is, I'd like to hear everybody's opinion, because on the next meeting, I'll put it where everybody decides is better. But those are the only two locations that actually work with DPW.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Did we have other public comments in regards to this proposed plan? Jenny?
Hi, thanks, Wendy, for letting me have a chance to talk. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. I agree with everything that Tom said a few minutes ago. And I know I sent a letter between the last meeting and now, but that's kind of a moot thing regarding the 6 cottages. But I just want to, I know that this region, this hillside that's been developed as single family homes now was all originally VC land. But when the town made the decision to convert it all to LDR land, it kind of raised the bar, I believe, for the remaining portion of the land that remains VC, because it becomes much more difficult to fit in certain types of structures and developments into a neighborhood that is now predominantly single family, very wooded, very nicely landscaped homes. So just want to call your attention, since we're talking about the zoning ordinance so much, right in the preamble of the ordinance, under section C, purpose number 2, the purpose of the zoning board is to assist in preventing the depreciation of property values. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this. You might not, but my land is highlighted in the green highlighter. And the proposed development is heavily outlined in black all along the bottom part of my land. And I don't know how anyone could possibly say that this development could not possibly adversely affect my property values. I think the new lot that we just bought will go to being almost worthless. And anyone who looks down from above, so myself, Ken, the Sheehan's, the Fernandez, they're just going to be looking at this, and I think it will be a detriment to all of us. So I think sort of the bigger picture of the zoning ordinance of making sure that nothing disparages the existing residents is more important necessarily than what's being proposed. I could go on, and I think I did in that previous letter about all the different parts of the ordinance that talk about making sure that the site, any potential development fits in with the surroundings. But I won't bore you. I won't bore you with that. So that's all. I just wanted to put that out there, that just don't think this is right.
And just for those who perhaps didn't read your letter in the public, you are ultimately in favor of the 6 cottages. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Wendy, if I could just interrupt, this is Rich. I need to leave now, so you will need to seat someone in my stead. Goodbye, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the meeting. Apologize for having to leave.
No worries. Thank you.
Good luck, Rich.
All right.
Wendy, this is Barry Fish.
Sorry, give me 1 second, Barry. Just as Rich is leaving, let's just seat Rob. I know it's been a bit. Still here with us, Rob, right?
Seated.
Thank you.
All set.
Thanks, Barry.
I'm in complete agreement with Jenny and Tom. I liked the detached cottages very much. I think they fit in with the neighborhood. I think they look like Waterville Valley. The other day, I was trying to picture from my home what those condos would look like. 40 feet high almost, a huge structure, all the trees gone, all pavement, and that's all you see. And the other question I have is, what is the distance between the driveway where the garages are and where people are using the multi-use trail, both summer and winter? That distance on the map, according to what I'm seeing, is only a few feet. It's very close. You're going to have cars driving up and down that driveway, people parking in the parking lots. It's just, and it's very close to the road. I don't know very many places that we're going to have that are that wide and that many units, and what that's going to look like. Remember, what you're doing here is you're making a decision for the future of what Waterville Valley is going to look like. Do you want it to look like the proposal present, or do you want it to look like the 6 units that are much nicer, much more fit in with the local venue? And I want to be very transparent also. I am not an abutter anymore. I sold the piece of property that abuts the development. I am, however, the president of the Moose Run Association, representing the people of Moose Run. And I can assure you, the choice between the condos and the detached cottages, there is no choice. They're in favor of the detached cottages. And then I'll end my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Any additional members of the public want to comment on the proposal at hand?
Excuse me, John Racine here, Wendy.
Okay.
Hi, Barry. I have a question for you, Barry. Are you still there?
Yeah.
So how many people in Moose Run do you represent?
We have approximately 40 units, 40 homes.
How many people?
Oh, people. Oh, probably, well, if you only count adults, probably 80 adults.
Okay, and was it unanimous that they all voted for this? Well,
No, there was no vote. We just asked people, hey, what do you think? What's going on? Blah, I'm rather disappointed that more people didn't show up for this. I sent it out to every single person in Moose Run.
Okay.
So no, and I'm just disappointed more people who are homeowners didn't show up.
Understood. Thank you, Barry.
Okay.
Wendy, did you want to share the written comment the board received
Yep. That was
yesterday. Do you have that in front of you?
you. Yes. So we had received from Ken Ackley correspondence, which read, "Hi, I'm unable to attend tomorrow's planning board meeting. Can you please forward this to the planning board? Hopefully this discussion is reaching a conclusion. I reviewed the 13-unit PUD proposal and see this as significantly better than the cluster of 6 houses. I have a couple of items to bring up. One is the space between structures within the zoning rules for multi-unit homes. 2, the board expressed concerns about a dumpster last month. Given the increase in bear sightings in town, I agree and hope this is excluded from the final design. Thanks, Ken." So that's Ken Ackley, who is, I guess I don't know, a neighbor. Is he part of that Moose Run Association, Barry?
Yes, Ken is part of Moose Run. He's not an abutter.
Right. Thank you, Tom.
And if I could circle back and clarify, because there's been some conversation in the chat about the dumpster setback too. Because I'm open to the right part of the zoning now. So what I had conveyed based on the zoning is that it's correct that if the dumpster was, if it was still talking about a trash room that would be an accessory building, then the setback would be 35 feet. But the setback for fences and walls is 10 feet, regardless of what district it's up against. So that's why if they were to show the plan again, you'd see there's a 10-foot setback between that dumpster enclosure and the property lines. Which is,
and I believe we can easily find numerous examples in town where the dumpster enclosures are pretty much right up next to the sidewalk, street right away. So yeah. So it seems like we have a strong desire to still address the cottages, and I wanted to make sure that the board, you know, I completely understand where folks are coming from in speaking in favor of the cottages. You know, I've gone around in my head with the PUD descriptions. Should we have put in that density was something that the board would be able to have some flexibility with? In this case, perhaps it shows that we ought to have done. I walk by this lot almost daily on my way to work, and you can't help but think if we'd had the original proposal for 2 triplexes, the board probably would have just rolled with it. And is it just semantics saying that those triplexes are split apart and they're cottages? I totally understand the density arguments that Ben and Nick have been making, but I just want to reiterate with the board whether we're truly comfortable moving forward, given the resurgence of the desire for the cottages versus the plan in front of us. Are there any comments from the board?
I have a comment. So I am very uncomfortable moving forward with the townhouses. I agree that I think it's the wrong thing for the town. I think they're awful. They're just too tall. They're 4 stories tall, taller than any of the houses in the development. The vast majority of the neighbors in nearby in Moose Run, are against it. And I have to say that I'm a neighbor in Moose Run, although I don't overlook it. So I would like to propose again that we take a sense of the meeting at the May 9th town meeting and use that vote at the sense of the meeting to kind of strengthen our back in moving forward with the 6-building or 6-unit development rather than the townhouses. Should it go that way?
Right.
Hey, Wendy, John Racine here. I 100% agree with Nancy, and we'd like to see it move forward in a different direction. That's my comment.
In a different direction, you mean you would
The cottages.
work backwards?
Yeah, Rob's in agreement with that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, likewise, I am in agreement with everything that's been said. If I read the intent of the PUD, there's a paragraph in there, the intent was to allow flexibility, not to do something that was stupid, which is where we're going now. So I don't understand what we're doing.
Okay. I hear that.
I think we have to ask Ben a question. We kind of shot down the cottage situation previously. And he has now come in and presented us with this option. Has said he has brought in investors and other things. I don't know what the final return on investment for these things differential would be, but is he comfortable going back to that? I think we have to ask that question first.
Absolutely.
I hate to sound like an accountant, but
You're muted, Ben. Ben, you're muted.
Oh, so, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, if we had this last time or the meeting before, unfortunately, where I sit right now is I'm not the sole decision maker anymore. I was, but as it kind of grew and we had to buy the property, like I had a closing period where I didn't have to buy it. Once I bought it, I took investors. I have people there. We still are up against the issue of, we had a neighbor at the last time said they were going to sue. And that's what my council has said, you could spend all this money, which, my last subdivision cost me $100,000. I don't know what this one will end up being, but between architecture, engineering, all that stuff, there's a massive risk. I mean, where I sit right now, I mean, I do have investors. I mean, I'd have to see. I don't know. I don't know. I'm in a bad position just because it's just been so long, and I've had a bunch of different iterations. Actually, the last meeting we actually started the architect on this plan because we kind of have a, if it's a PUD or a by right, it's the same building. We just add a unit and it kind of becomes one. I mean, does the board feel like they absolutely? I mean, even before I can even make that even thought is. Can they make a decision of, yes, we can approve this? Because, every meeting costs me thousands probably, and time. And then if we miss the next winter, that could cost, I mean, how much income, could we lose from that? So it's kind of, I feel like we're in a tough spot. Like I've been saying for a while, the zoning code is clearly written for something that doesn't quite exist today, but it was never adapted or moved with. When the rest of the neighborhood kind of seceded from that zone, it was still written for deliberately the highest density in town. And it is close to town. I see both sides, and but I have my build partner who's now a partner in this. I have my business partner. I have an investor. And honestly, it's time. I mean, I'm getting a real lot of pressure on time and just money spent. My investors ditch out money for architecture engineering month after month, and they're basically like, when does it end? So they kind of, the last one, we're kind of like, hey, you guys can go this different route of the PUD, maybe one more meeting, but I'll be honest with you, the investors are full board with the 15. That's what they want. And I'm in the other aspect where I was fighting for the 6 for so long that it kind of became the 6 is drastically less profitable than the 15, clearly. And that's where I'm kind of in between,
my concern, you're voicing my concern to you, which is as someone that used to represent builders. And you now talk about your investors and you talk about other things. If I were an investor in your situation, I would not be happy with going back because it would be significantly less return on investment, dollars in pocket, call it whatever you want, and also as someone that has represented builders, and all of a sudden you have done something which in any way varies from current code. Lawsuits are very easily filed and not fun,
Yeah.
and can hold up things for in a long period of time. So I understand it. I don't like it personally. But I don't think there's a lot of choice.
I know. At the last meeting, my
is my choice.
investors heard the letter that kind of put out that there will be a lawsuit, you know, and they hear that and they hear, well, how long do I have to carry this thing while it goes through litigation? You know, they basically are, their opinion is, so wait, it's more profitable for us if we stick directly to zoning code and we build exactly to zoning code, and there's less profit, higher risk, and potentially the option of dragging it out for years if you go against zoning code. And at the last meeting, we did not know that town council actually wrote a letter. We left it. We came into that meeting believing that he was in the middle, and we did not know he took a stance. And that kind of also changes the risk factor, because, you know, if there's one person that hates it, I didn't know town council actually wrote that letter at the last meeting when we went in. So that is something that the investors heard as well, which is.
And town council kind of said, you don't have the authority to do this.
Yeah.
Wendy, this is Rich. May I comment?
Oh, okay, sure.
Rich, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. I would just like to remind the board that both our land use planner and town council say we do not have the power to violate, that's the word really, the zoning ordinance as written. We've been around this topic, unfortunately for Ben, for several months. We're in a bit of a box. I think we all recognize that. But if we decide to move in a direction that violates zoning ordinance, this will open the town up to litigation and other developers who will then ask, well, if you bent or broke the zoning ordinance regulation for one developer, why not me? So I think we have to consider both the legal and the legal ramifications of violating the zoning ordinance as written. As for a sense of the town meeting, it has no legal standing. As much as I agree with everybody, the cottages are much nicer. Even if the sense of the town meeting were to go along with it, it would have no legal standing on the zoning ordinance, because we do not have the power to approve those cottages as expressed in a letter by our town council and has expressed in the opinion of our land use planner. So I just want to raise that, put that on the record, and that we also have in front of us a conceptual plan for a PUD that we should be voting on, so that Ben can move forward one way or the other, given the time constraints and the financial issues that he is facing.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to reiterate, it's Mike Capel again. I want to reiterate another part that Rich just said. Once again, as somebody that's been around the block with builders in my prior life, once we break our zoning code for one person and someone else comes along and says, you did it for him, you have to do it for me. Otherwise, I'm going to sue you.
Yep. Okay.
And yeah, I really think that based upon the letter from the attorneys and all the rest of the things that I see, I don't think that we can go that route.
Okay.
As well as everything that Ben just said to us, which is he now has investors, he now has other people, that we put him in that position.
Yes, I totally hear all those points. I think perhaps the big impact. Oh, go ahead, Nancy.
Well, I was just going to say that, Mike, you're making good points, but I still say that our job is less to worry about Ben's finances than to worry about what's right for the town. And the giant buildings are not right for the town. And so I am going back to a comment that Tara made at a previous meeting. And I guess I wanted to check with Tara that she said that we don't necessarily have to vote for it if we think it's not following kind of the essence of what, like the 10-year plan and the idea of what we wanted for the town is. Is that correct?
No,
No?
I would not have said that. The town plan has no legal standing. What I did say is that the plan unit development section of your zoning leaves it up to the planning board. You want to be looking at the language in that section as you make your decision. It's not, there is some discretion for the planning board of whether it's whether it meets the intent of that section on page 31 of your ordinance. You haven't, I just procedurally want to remind you, you have an application in front of you. Technically, to do what some are suggesting, which I agree with Rich, doesn't have a non-binding vote at town meeting, isn't going to help Ben in court, isn't going to help you in court. You have an application in front of you, and if you felt strongly that it doesn't comply with the plan unit development section of your zoning ordinance on page 31, then you need to vote no on the conditional use permit and leave it up to him to reapply, or with the cottages, which you're putting him in a really uncomfortable position, asking him to submit an application that doesn't comply with the zoning.
Right.
Oh, then I have a follow-up question, which is, do our town rules allow us to have a sort of out of order vote on creating regulations? In other words, do we have to only do it at once a year at town meeting, or can we do a special town vote on changing the PUD regulations?
You would need to have a special town meeting.
Yeah. And how?
Not like slip it into the May one. You'd need to go through the regular process with the public hearing process and all.
How long?
And that would be a warrant item that would have to be voted on.
Right, by ballot. And I think that we've all learned from Ben's application that next time we do amendments for the zoning, we want to consider adding density to be one of the things that the board can flex in the PUD section, but unfortunately it's not there yet.
How long would it take if we're playing this out. How long would it take to do a special town meeting with a special warrant? Should we decide that's the way we want to go?
Well, that's a Mark question.
Okay, Mark?
I first of all, we could not do anything between now and May 11th. So we couldn't even start the process until after town meeting. I think it would take probably around 90 days or more. I would have to look at the actual scheduling requirements, because you have to have the public hearings, and then you have to have so many days of public notice before the actual special town meeting would be held. So I don't know right off the top of my head, but I'd say 60 to 90 days minimum, and that cannot occur. That clock cannot start between now and because everything is frozen due to town meeting.
If I could say just one thing, yeah, we do things like that. We do propose zone changes. I'm sitting in a house that's built by Dave in a place where we changed the zone, and it was very successful. It was great. It's a long process. This project took me almost 3 years to approve. It's risky. There could be opposition. We have one neighbor who, I'm getting text messages from my investors right now. It is true, Nancy, that you guys don't have to approve this, bud. That is something, and I read that ordinance. The tough part I've always had with this is just the ordinance and the intent and what it says doesn't really line up, because you're not going to get both. But the position where we sit is if you try to do something that's best for the neighborhood, it violates the density. If you hit the density, all the neighbors might not be happy, but it's one of the most unique situations I've ever seen in my life where the backup by right is higher density, in my opinion. So I would say, if the PUD does not have to be approved, the way I look at it, just like last meeting, the PUD does actually not do anything for my pocketbooks. Most PUDs, the reason to go through them is because you get density bonuses for doing public benefits, you have open space, you actually have benefit as the developer to go through it. I look at this as I'm proposing, I have a by right building and I removed 2 units worth, could be up to $75,000 each to get view vistas. But for me as a developer, the by right is drastically higher value. So, the reason why I'm going it, because I do feel a little bit bad. I'm kind of stuck in this middle place where I thought I had a great project. I've found that it cannot go through. I now have investors. But this PUD is basically, my investors are allowing me to try this, but we are losing 2 units by doing a PUD of this ordinance. But my investors are not going to start ripping out units to get bigger openings and drop the heights, because it's just, at this point, it's different than when I started. But right now, we're following the ordinance. I mean, obviously, somebody wrote that the multifamilies get 45-foot height limits. We're not trying to max that out, but it is what it is. I'm not the only one, and I'm just, so the only thing I could say that, like, in terms of the neighborhood, I mean, I heard their comments, if that lot becomes where it's not as valuable as they thought, I mean, I would be open to buying it for more than, I'd say market value, whatever. And even on top of that, I'd be willing to maybe leave a buffer. If we did build something on that lot, I would leave a screen of natural woods protected by conservation restrictions forever, so that they get, their money was protected and potentially make money. And the neighborhood's also has a buffer zone protected forever. I mean, I heard the comments. I'm just in a, so I'm not pushing, but if they wanted to do that, I'm more than willing to take that burden off them. But it's a weird. I've just never been in a situation where the by right underlying zone has the highest density than any of the special permit procedures. So this is kind of like a middle ground that we're trying to get done by removing 2 units. But I know if my investors here, like 6 months, special meetings, going to special town meetings that could potentially fail 6 months in the line, they're going to basically pull the plug and they could take control on top of me. So
just I think things that, so I think it's not that there's something wrong with Waterville Valley's PUD section. It's that it was written with the intent of allowing multiple buildings on one lot rather than allowing additional buildings or units on a lot. It's so that somebody doing a cluster development of 15 homes doesn't have to make 15 lots. They can be clustered on one portion of the lot and all on the same lot. That's the intent of we've now learned, well, maybe there's another goal that could reach. I want to just mention to anybody putting comments in the chat that if they want something to be actually part of the public hearing record, they need to raise their hand, use the raise hand feature under reactions. Those on YouTube aren't seeing the chat, so it's not officially, becoming part of the public hearing.
Yeah,
It's Mike Capel. Can I make an important comment?
Mike, before you do that, Jen's been trying
Go
to,
ahead.
has typed some comments and had her hand raised a while ago. So Jen, do you want us to reiterate what you had typed in? Jenny Lucas, did you want to? Sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking to the other Jen who's on the call.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But now so much time has gone by, I'm not sure I remember why I originally raised my hand. I guess I have a question. I understand the spirit of the PUD is allowing, you know, separation of buildings and a little bit more open space, and the by right, you know, he could have one continuous structure, but it's currently 2 lots. So I don't know how you put one continuous structure on 2 separate lots. I don't know who has the authority to answer that question, but
The PUD would allow that. I'm assuming that they're gonna wanna merge the lots.
right. But assuming he gets fed up with this, assuming this PUD gets shot down and he gets fed up with it, and he says, I'm just going to do my by right building, and he wants to put up one continuous building, how does he do that across 2 separate lots?
The planning board doesn't have the authority to deny him merging the lots.
Okay, that's what I thought too. Yeah.
And I think we have to remember, Jenny and everyone else, the by right concept here. As I read all of this, and I have spent a lot of hours over the last few days, my understanding here legally, not what I necessarily want, but legally, is we can either go with the 13 units with the separations, or he can go with a by right and basically, I hate to use the word circumvent, but basically circumvent us and build those 15. I think, and I could be wrong, it would only be the first time since 9/10 today. I think that's our choice.
Well, except that and I was going to make this point as well, any further action, whether we go with the PUD or by right, does need to go through site plan subdivision review. And I think it's incumbent upon this board to have heard all the concerns and try to help create an ultimate project that would be a good fit. You know, while we have in front of us this plan, this conceptual plan for the 3 buildings, I think that fits into our regulations, our zoning. There is a further process here where, you know, as a board, we're going to have to push back, might be a strong term, but we're going to have to work with the developers to make sure that the end product fits well. So accepting this today, we're not accepting it today and going the other way isn't the end of the process. We aren't saying these structures are how it's going to end up, because there probably will be some push and pull.
Oh, absolutely. This is very conceptual.
Yes.
All right. And there could be push, changes here, changes there. See exactly, we don't know exactly what things are going to look like. We haven't seen exactly what a landscaping plan will look like. There's a lot of other things. I don't think going back to the cottages, I don't think that it's going to work legally.
Right. But I do think it's incumbent upon us to hear this loudly. Tom, Maris?
And you commented earlier about possible lawsuit. Where's that coming from? Is that coming from Ackley?
That was implied in one.
That's not. But that's not it. That is not within our purview to disclose any possible litigation or litigants, and I don't think it is appropriate for the board to answer that question, nor do we know. All right. Of the
Well, let me make another comment. You're likely to get a lawsuit from the other direction, from Moose Run. If you build that ugly edifice, you can expect us to sue, because that is detrimental to the look and feel of our community. Simple as that.
And that's why, as we go through the next processes, we need to make sure that we're working with the abutters and the neighborhood and help create a project that everyone can be happy with.
Well, I make a comment that it's evident it is the Moose Run Association that is raising these objections. And it's the Moose Run Association who has, well, I'll take it as a threat to sue. It's the Moose Run Association that led the charge against the half-lot restriction that the board had proposed and was voted down 2 years ago. So the board is in a very difficult position. Nobody wants to build an ugly edifice. But under these circumstances where one side threatens to sue and it's possible that the other side would threaten to sue, what do you expect the board to do? We're facing a situation that is, what's on the agenda today is to vote yes or no on the PUD. The cottage problem and the cottage proposal is no longer on the agenda. So I think that the board is in an untenable position, but that there isn't anything that we can do to backtrack to the cottage position.
And I actually had someone look up the results of that vote 2 years ago, and it was 40% to allow and 60%, which is to not allow the change in zoning, and a 60% vote on something. We've seen some other things that are almost unanimous, but a 60% vote in something like that is very substantial difference. That's why I had it looked up.
Yeah, but I'd like to clarify that that vote was actually influenced in response to a specific developer also.
No, Nancy, all true.
No, Mike, don't interrupt. It was not actually, we did not put it on the ballot in response to the developer, but the vote was influenced in response to a specific plan that a developer put in front of everyone. And so, that's what happened, is people didn't like that specific development, and that heavily influenced the vote. And that is actually the history. So I'm looking at what Jenny typed up, and I assume that it's actually what's in the PUD section of the zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
And, I'm torn, because on the one hand, sure, Ben's plan right now actually follows kind of legally what he's able to do. But then in the PUD, it says it has to be found not adverse to the property values or the character of the neighborhood, or offensive. And I'm hearing, Tom and Barry say, it is totally offensive. And I'm hearing an abutter say, it's going to hurt her property values. So I think it puts us in a very tough position. I don't think it's as cut and dried as we would like to think it is.
Can I just say one thing? I think, Tom, were you not in favor of the townhouses originally? From back in December, do you remember I proposed a rear view of the townhouses that were 4 stories tall to show how tall they were going to be on the street? And I thought there was a comment that came from you that you were in favor of the townhouses and not the cottages.
There was.
I have not been involved in this until recently.
That I think that was from 2 years ago, that condos would be better than a scat.
Okay. Well, we've had multiple, so there's 2 comments. I mean, we've had multiple people throughout this process, which has kind of thrown me for a loop, that was in favor. And I think, Tom, you started out as a townhouse supporter. Unfortunately, it's a little bit far in the game. Everybody seemed to have switched, except for last meeting, I had 1 in favor, 1 against. And in terms of property values, I mean, I could disclose what we have a buy-in for a partner, and I can tell you the property values are drastically increased with the multifamily property and with the ability of an abutter to do a multifamily property. So, I mean, I sit right now, I mean, it kind of sounds like, the by right is the avenue. I mean, we're trying, it's like, we can't be in this forever, this game where, a year or 2 ago, they didn't want the small cottages. Then I proposed that they wanted them. I had 2 or 3 people that said they wanted the townhouses. Then I proposed the cottages. Then we can't do the cottages. So then we designed something exactly to what everybody said the PUD says. Now it doesn't meet the surrounding neighbors, and unfortunately, lawsuits, if they're getting thrown out there, I mean, my biggest attribute to lawsuits is stick to the zoning code. Do exactly what you guys designed, which is the by right building. I mean, unfortunately, if I'm going to be threatened to be sued for something where I'm literally just removing units to try to make it a little bit better for the town, my safest option for me and my investors is to just go by right and take this PUD off the table. Because as I sit here right, I mean, a lawsuit coming in on a by right project that spells out exactly to the zoning code. I mean, I can't get sued if the zoning code says 45 feet and I'm 38 and a half. I mean, if I'm within the setbacks, the open space, the lot size, my best protection against a lawsuit is to not do a PUD. So, I mean, we're here to kind of try to work with you guys and give some separation of buildings. But I have to be honest, I'm only getting separation of buildings by removing units that have an actual cost value to me. So my investors are actually not happy with me right now that I'm even in here. So, I mean, I get it. This is a very difficult situation. And if the neighbors did not secede from this neighborhood, the original intent of the neighborhood, if you read back where the neighborhood was created, it was a multi-family residential neighborhood. And unfortunately, you can't go against your own neighborhood, do what you want, then secede from the zone, and then say that we're hurting you guys. Because I could say the same thing back. So we have to come up with a decision. I'm fully prepared to take this off the table and go by right. But there has to be an end here. I can't just keep doing this. Every meeting costs me thousands of dollars, probably hundreds of hours. It is one of those things where someone needs to make a decision. And if there's any lawsuits on the table, I am going by right 100%.
So just so you have the facts correct, the original Moose Run was all VC. There was no demand for condos. There hasn't been demand for condos for quite some time. When we realized that the majority of the lots were all single family, we requested a rezone to lower density residential. The 5.5 acre piece that you're part of was determined by the town to be left VC to allow for condominiums. However, again, no demand for condominiums all through the mortgage crisis because the banks wouldn't fund them. One condominium was built there, a 3-unit condominium. The rest of the land is sold and currently being developed as single-family houses. So you're going to be surrounded by single-family houses. Nobody's going to see that 3-unit condo in the back. And by the way, not too far down the road, somebody is building probably the most expensive house ever built in Waterville. And he has to drive by your condo to get to it. People are going to be.
Were you not in favor of the townhouses?
I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't get involved in this.
Did you not send a letter that said you were in favor of the townhouses?
I never sent you a letter.
You were in one of the comments in the beginning of the process, because I remember asking questions, was you said, I think the townhouses look good.
I don't recall even being
involved. This is a switch. So I understand that now that this is on the table, people are backtracking, but you in the beginning were in favor of the townhouses. Now, my time and money is being spent every single meeting. And unfortunately, where I sit right now, every time, the further we go, I want to go by right, because it's the only way that I can stop this.
I think you're referring to a different town.
Wendy, if you want to stop this back and forth, I have a mute button. I can unmute people when you call on them.
Okay. Yeah, I do think we need to, as a board, move forward with what's in front of us today. So we have this conceptual plan, and we've heard all the discussion back and forth. We will have additional time as we.
You accidentally muted yourself when.
I didn't mute anything. Anyway, so I'm not sure where we got cut off here, but we will have additional time as we go through the site plan subdivision review process to work through the details. What's in front of the board today is this conditional use permit And I'd like us to move forward on that. We've heard all the discussion.
Could I just ask Ben one question that, then I'll get off of this?
Yep.
Which is that should the feeling on the board, which I'm getting a sense that we strongly prefer the 6 units and we feel like it's the right thing for the town. If we were to fast track a vote, and it would take 60 days, so May 11th to July 11th, give or take a few weeks, would you work with us on that, or is that out of the question?
I mean, in the meantime, I have to approve something. I know I 100% do not have authority to get off this meeting today and not have a direction. I know 100%. My investors were very clear on that. If we'd made this decision months ago, I would have had a lot more leeway. And I'm sorry to get frustrated, but I've had certain neighbors that were against me in the beginning, and now it seems like they were for me, and I get frustrated because I've spent hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of hours on this, and it's like one meeting too late, 2 meetings too late. I really wish I had the support 2 meetings ago when I didn't have new partners, new investors, before I had to buy the land. I mean, unfortunately, I had a 6 to 9 month closing process where I didn't have to buy it until a certain point. That's why I get frustrated. I just, every meeting, I probably spend, God, hundreds of hours doing this between meetings. So, I mean, if we want to go a direction and, there can be a talk after this, I mean, if I can make the financial partners agree and make sense with it, I might be able to convey them. Don't be surprised that if there's another small cottage squeezed in to try to get my argument through to my investors. I'm not saying it's an end deal that I couldn't make something work, but I don't think the 6, I have to give them reason, because carrying this thing costs money. And for them, missing a winter costs money. So for them, I wish I was more in control. When I had the contract, I was. When I bought it, I'm less. So, I mean, as it sits right now, I mean, I wish there was a consensus, honestly. And I wish it happened a long time ago so that I had a little bit more time. But as it sits right now, I mean, I look at it as I only have one authority from my investors, which is get something of a direction to get this thing permitted, whether it's the PUD, the by right, whatever. That's the reason why we're on a second agenda item. I don't typically do that, but I'm getting major pressure. So, I mean, if we wanted to go, as it looks right now, I'm open to talks. I mean, nothing's finalized until it's actually built, but I definitely don't have permission to take off the meeting. And otherwise I could be replaced. And somebody else could be presenting something, and they have done an analysis through the engineers. They could be looking at an underground parking situation with 24 to 30 units. I mean, that's not a direction I wanted to go, because I wanted the townhouse, but that's where I just want to see. I think we should try to take a stance today based on what's on the table. I'm not closing off communications. I'm not closing off discussions. If there's a process that can make it work, that I can financially present to my investors, it's just frustrating that it was just a little too late for the support. So I would say for right now, there's 2 options that I have, which is a 13 unit PUD with spaces. If that gets shot down, I got to be honest, it'll never come back. I don't have the authority. So they've instructed me to kind of like only focus by right, because I've been doing the PUD submissions for, since early winter. So yeah, I mean, I'm not closing down. I mean, I guess that's what I could say is, even if we got a conditional use permit today, if financially and there's a process that can make it, I'll see if I can do it. I mean, obviously I wanted to have a cottage myself. That's why I pushed for so long, because as a family member, don't you think I'd rather have my own little single family up there? And that's why I was emotional. Last meeting, I was very frustrated because I saw my family's single go away. So, but since then I've kind of had other partners smack me in the head and say, you're a developer, not, stop getting emotional over it. And I've kind of looked at the numbers, and it's drastic difference. So yeah, I'm not closing down. I think we do need to focus on what we're presenting, which is the 13 versus the 15. And if it's the PUD you guys think is better for the neighborhood than a multifamily, one multifamily, I would say approve it. If you can't, don't. I mean, then we're basically just going to make everything meet the zoning code exactly. So if it's 45 feet, it could be 45 feet, and it'll be exactly what the zoning code said, so that even if we do go to court, there will absolutely be no arguments. That's what they've instructed me. So I would say let's see what we got in front of us, but I'm keeping the conversation open the best I can.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Yep.
So let's move forward. We have this conditional use permit for this PUD. There hasn't been a lot of talk directly about it. Are there any forward questions for Ben or his developer or Nick for what's in front of us today?
You know, Wendy, if I can just ask the question, Ben, in looking at the plans, I guess we're looking at the 13 at this point. Is that the one that's?
Yeah.
Yes.
The front of the building, you're saying the front of the building is the one that faces Valley Road and the back of the building is the one that faces north?
So it's kind of has both. I don't know if you guys remember back in December, I gave you guys an example of if that was just the back of the building and there was kind of high decks on it. So this one is an attempt that used to be that's the front. It's an adaptation to the front of a building we're building in Salisbury right now. So we basically added the garage. We took the front of that building, which is why we have a lot smaller decks, because it came from that as actually the front. So now we're currently making the rear of the building look as close, so we have two fronts. That's the difficulty of this building.
Okay, one thing I noticed is with regard to snow storage, I think that you're all right on the Valley Road side.
Yeah.
But on the north side, you seem to be a little shy on snow storage. The only place I can see, you have to get around trees or the dumpster. How would you plow that?
It's probably going to have some removal. I mean, there's going to probably have removal of snow, and I can shift some trees. It's difficult, but it's probably going to the top side be probably some front loaders that bring it to the bottom. And there's going to be snow storage along the side. So
is there also a possibility that you might sacrifice some of the parking spaces in order to get some storage?
Yep. I mean, we threw in guests. I'm not tied to anything over the 2 spots. So if we have to remove some spots to get some snow storage, that's absolutely something that would be on the table.
All right, thanks.
And John Racine, hi, I have a question for you. The 13 units as opposed to the 15 units, are they the same square footage?
They are, yeah. So yeah, 15, yeah.
Okay, and the height would be the same as well, 38.5?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any additional questions?
I actually had one. So the Moose Run development, there's actually regulations about how buildings should look in order to be able to be built in the development. And it used to be Bill Cantlin that would personally approve or disapprove. And so this is actually a question, Wendy, really for Barry, the president of the board, which is who approves the look of the buildings now that Bill is out of the picture?
Do you want me to answer?
Go ahead, Barry. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be Bob Freeze. Bob Freeze has replaced Bill Cantlin as president of the Waterville company. He would approve it.
Okay.
So these have already been run through Bob. He's kind of given our stamp on the elevations as it exists today for the 13. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's less about the elevation. It just doesn't have the kind of timber frame look and feel. It's not the look and feel of the rest of the buildings in the development. So I was just wondering whether they were just generic drawings that you had adapted from some other development, or whether these were actually how you're going to make them look, because it doesn't really look like it's appropriate. But
I mean, it was approved by the Waterville company, who's in charge of the neighborhood association so far. But I mean, we're going to try to do as much as we can, but townhouses are never going to look the same as singles. We're going to try to add some elements that we can, but it's a difficult task to make it look exactly.
But it's not, they're not timber frame at all. Not
I don't
even,
think the other ones are either. They're kind of faux timber framed.
that's okay. I mean, faux or real, they're
Okay.
not even approaching.
Yeah, well, it doesn't say timber frame in the neighborhood association design standards. It more focuses on just peaks, some variations. It talks a lot about colors with trim being darker. I mean, again, this is a private association and it was approved by the Waterville company. So the town does not really, we're going to do our best. And that's another thing. I mean, if people have design comments, absolutely. We're going to try to get the best building we can. I'm not shutting down on that either. But, knowing that this is the direction we did go through and get approval, but hey, we'd be open to even talking to it, bringing in another architect. If someone up there was a little bit better at that design than our architect, I'm not shutting down to that either. So maybe have a architect consultant on my architect. That's fine with me. So
yeah, just a reminder that although private covenants aren't anything the board would be discussing, you'll certainly talk more about the look of the building when you get to site plan review. The decision on the table today is whether to approve 3 principal buildings on the lot with up to 13 units. That's really what the motion would be if you vote today.
Wendy, it's Mike. Is it appropriate now to call the motion?
Yes. Would you make a motion?
Mike Capel, I call the motion to decide whether or not we want to approve.
Well, what would you like to make an actual motion?
Yes.
I move we accept the proposed PUD as put forth.
I'll second that motion.
Alrighty. All those in favor, Nancy?
This is a vote so we're voting now on whether or not to accept the 3 buildings.
Yes. Whether we're accepting the conditional use permit for the 3 buildings with up to 13 minutes.
I just can't do it. No.
Okay. Mike?
Yes.
Bill Larson?
Yes.
Myself, Wendy Rathgaber, yes. John?
John Racine, I'm torn. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm torn.
I agree, John.
Oh, man.
Bill Spence?
Yes, I put myself also in the torn category, but there's no option. I'd rather have this PUD than the 15 units.
I agree.
Rob?
On principle, have to be no.
Alrighty. So then we will look forward to continuing this. Well, not continuing, sorry, wrong word. To moving forward with the subdivision site plan review next meeting.
thank you. And
Motion passed.
request, in the meantime, I actually was serious about if there's any good local architects that you guys think would be a good suggestion to take a pass at it. If you guys want to send it through an email in between the next meeting, I'll see what I can do on looks wise.
And if you can just, keep in mind as you're moving forward, Ben, and then all the feedback, I think it would make it a much more pleasant process if we can find something
Yeah.
that would be more towards the cottage look and feel.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll do the best we can. And again, if anybody has any comments on architects to help that mountain look and see, that might be a kicker that could help through the process. So cool.
Just for clarification, Wendy, what was the vote?
5 yes, 2 no.
Good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ben.
Yep. And then the next, I think the 15 we'll just continue that or something. I think just in case. I think I was on the second agenda item as the 15 conceptual. So if we can continue that to just in, if it doesn't pass to the next meeting.
Are you asking us to vote on it?
I guess, yeah, I don't know what the procedure would be. I only have that on there because, if it goes south, then I have to have at least a conceptual to get,
No, I think just as in last time, we would just strike it from the agenda for
that's
today.
good. Yep. Cool.
Thank you, Ben.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Do we need 5 minutes? We're gonna power through? Okay, we'll power through. I only saw Nancy reacting. Sorry, anyone else? So our next agenda, gonna jump around again. Minor site plan review for the Ray Center. Do we have Mark, Leah, or whoever's presenting for that?
Yes, I can do the presentation. The plan, everybody received a copy of the plan. Let me share what we have here. Hold on just a moment, please. So I have a question before we start, Mark. The selectmen have approved this use of the cottage? Well, we need planning board approval of the minor site plan application before we can have the final conversation with the selectmen. So that's why it's actually the planning board first. Is the way we're doing it. And I just let Rich back into the meeting, so if he wants to comment about that being different, I'm fine with that.
So is Rich?
He just connected to audio. So the application that you have before you actually comes from the Waterville Valley School District. They are the property owners, with the town and the Ray Center nonprofit as the responsible parties as far as the owner of the building and the operator of the program. The actual preschool use of the building would be Monday through Friday. It would follow the school year. It's very closely related to the programs that they run through the Ray Center for their summer programs. The Ray Center has done the younger children programming with the rec, as far as the summer is concerned, with the rec department handling the other children programming through their summer camps. So the preschool would operate during the hours that the school would operate. They would use the same drop-off area that they currently have. The preschool does have to be licensed by the state of New Hampshire, so the actual operations will be tailored to meet the requirements of state law and safety codes that are required for any preschool in the state. The building that they will use will be the Curious George Cottage. I'm just scrolling down here. I think there's a map attached. Hold on just a second. Sorry. Here we go. So the actual programming will occur on the building site, which is adjacent to or part of the school district property. Lot 28 here is a town-owned parcel. A lot of the programming that will be done as part of this preschool program will be outdoors, and that will occur on lot 28. And the other part of this proposal is the construction of a fence that meets state requirements. There must be an enclosed outdoor space with a preschool for outdoor activities. This fence will meet whatever the state requirement is. And I'm sorry, I don't have that exact dimension, but this is the general outline of where that fence line will be. This is the area, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but right in here, this part is where the school has recess. It, as you know, it kind of slopes down here and to the pickleball courts at the bottom of the little slope here away from the cottage. We are coordinating with the principal to make sure that anything that's built there does not interfere with the school operations during recess. This is a rendering of what the fence line, the approximate location of the fence line off to the side of the cottage. There will be some improvements made to the cottage, including an additional exterior access for the office space so they don't have to walk through the preschool area when programming is occurring inside the building. Other than that, I'm open to any questions that you have. There's no interruption. I do want to make one more comment. There's no interruption of the regularly scheduled Ray Center programming with regards to the Friday night stuff or evening programming for adults, the speaker series on Friday nights, the weekend hiking and other programming that's normally been part of what the Ray Center does. So this is in addition to our current operations. So there's no real impact on anything that currently goes on at the Ray Center.
Okay, great. So I believe our first step for the board is to vote on whether this minor site plan application is complete.
I have a question on declaring it a minor site plan application. Does that require that we hold a public hearing or not?
Minor, Tara, would you clarify that?
My recollection was that it does.
But it was listed as such, wasn't it?
It was.
Yes, I think I worked with Nick on that. Yeah, it's
We noticed the butters.
it's different than a minor lot line adjustment, which doesn't. It's because there isn't a category under the state law called minor site plan. It's the same procedure as any other site plan.
So we've notified the abutters and
Yes,
at some point we're going to hold a public hearing.
this is
This
now,
is the public hearing.
after you accept it as complete, you will hold the public hearing.
Yeah. Is that clear on that, Bill?
I am.
Okay. So do I hear a motion on the completeness of this minor site plan application?
I'll make a motion that to accept the minor site plan application as complete.
I'll second that. John Racine.
All those in favor? Nancy? Oh, you're muted.
Yes.
Mike?
Mike Capel, yes.
Bill Larson?
Yes.
Wendy Rathgaber, yes. John?
Yes, John Racine.
Bill Spence?
Yes.
Actually, I'm sorry. Rich, have you officially rejoined the meeting?
No.
Or listening in as public? I guess I'm going to assume listening in as public.
I think he's a listener.
Yep. So Rob?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the application? Oh, so, sorry, officially open public hearing. So any questions or comments from the public in favor or against, or any questions?
Wendy, this is Rich. I'm fading in and out, so I'm just listening. Thank you. Sorry for the confusion.
That's fine. Any questions or comments from the board on the application?
I have just one question about pickup and drop off for parking. We have enough space in there to do this?
Yes, the program is to a maximum of 8 children. So, and several of the children that we currently have on the waiting list, if we were to start this next fall, would be already families that are dropping off school-age children. So we don't anticipate that there'll be any real impact, measurable impact on the parking requirements, because it is just a drop-off. So the parking lot itself is large enough to accommodate the drop-off, we feel.
Is the start time in the morning similar to that of the elementary school?
It is. It's going to be similar, maybe a little bit later, but we're anticipating that the family, when they bring the child to the elementary school, would be able to drop off the sibling at the preschool. We'll tie them together as much as we can.
Is the drop off actually in the same location in front of the elementary school, or are they going to swing by the Ray Cottage to drop the preschoolers off?
Well, you can drive in that same entrance that they use for the elementary school drop off. And then there are a couple of parking spaces straight ahead that they would be able to use. And they can go over to the Ray Center if they want to be closer for the younger child, and then drop off, just walk the older child down to the elementary school. Shouldn't cause any problems foot traffic wise.
And then at the end of the day, is it a similar procedure?
Similar end time. Yep. So that can be coordinated for families. We'd look to work it out so that families could drop off both children if they had one at the elementary school and one at the preschool. We want to make it a complementary program to the elementary school, because Leah was approached by families that currently have children in the elementary school to even consider putting this program together. And that's because Leah's already doing the younger children, the children who are preschool age, as part of her summer programming. So it was a natural follow-on to that.
Okay.
And I believe the demand is enough so that this is going to be viable. We already have the program full if it's approved.
All right. Any additional questions? Does anyone feel ready to make a motion?
A
Mike
motion
Capel.
to approve this conditioned on the fact that the selectmen agree to the use of the building.
That will be an agenda item for the 14th.
I second the motion.
All righty. All those in favor, Nancy,
Yes.
Mike,
Mike Capel, yes.
Joe, Larson,
Yeah,
Wendy Rathgaber, yes. John,
John Racine, yes.
Bill Spence,
And yes,
Rob.
Yes.
All righty.
Thank you.
So that has passed. Great. Just again, sorry to keep skipping around the agenda, but I hate to keep anyone waiting longer than they need to. Sean Ward, are you here for the winter light?
Yes, I am here.
Thank you for hanging in there. So the idea with the winter lights was that we can review how the winter season went.
You want to buy something for now.
So, and of course, if the board had any questions or observations, this would be our time to discuss it. Now, I assume you're going to be doing things a little bit differently next year. I know you talked about a larger scope project in general. Is that still something you're considering, or did you want to keep it? Are you looking to keep it going the same as you did last winter?
We'd like to expand the show each year a little bit. I think that it is important for well, first of all, I think that all the feedback I got from what we put on this year was positive. Everybody loved it. Both visitors to Waterville Valley and the residents, I heard nothing but compliments and positive feedback about the show. If there was anybody out there that had issues with it, they certainly didn't communicate those to us. I think it was fantastic. We would like to expand the show each year. I think this year it was more of a visual display. And if we want that to continue, it eventually has to generate some sort of measurable income to support itself. This year it was run completely off of donations from sponsors, business sponsors in the community. And in the future, to sustain that, it's going to need to produce some kind of admission fee or some kind of activity within the light show that can produce funds to sustain the show. So that's why in future years, I'd like to see, obviously when COVID's done and we can get people back into participating in things as groups. I would love to see some activities out there, concession stands, hot cocoa booth, or train rides, tractor rides through the lights for kids, things like that, something that could produce some kind of a sustaining revenue. So to answer your question, I would like to expand the show in future years. And, I will spend some time over the course of the next several months kind of reflecting on what we did do this year, what successes we had this year, and looking into what we might propose for a future show so that we can get that, get an application into the planning board for next year.
And when would you be looking to submit an application?
I would hope to have this somewhere towards the end of the summer to be applying for with details about what we'd like to do next year to be able to apply by the end of the summer.
Okay. Were there any comments from the board or questions?
Do you have any pictures of what it looked like? Unfortunately, I was out of town while it was running.
Yeah, there's on the Facebook page, we did post stuff. If you want to get on, if you have Facebook, or the website also has some photos, which I'm going to be adding more of the photos to the website. I'm also going to be requesting,
What, Don, what is the website?
Yeah.
It is winterlightswv.com.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And you can find the Facebook page as well as at winterlightswv.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Hi, Sean. John Racine here. I have a question for you. During the winter time, once COVID's over with, they usually have fireworks quite a bit during the winter. How would you coordinate that?
I think it plays in really well with the lights. First of all, these didn't produce, I do have a report on the lumen, the lumens that were created by this, which I can talk about. It didn't create any significant lumen activity at any of the points that people were concerned with. I think it would be a conversation with anybody that's putting on with, Town Square with the resort about, do they want the lights off during the fireworks? That's easy to do. All these lights were controlled by 3 timer switches. Really easy to shut the lights off if that's what they desired. I think combining fireworks with the light display would have been fantastic. If that was happening on Saturdays, it would have made it twice as magical to be standing out there and being able to experience the lights while waiting for the fireworks, and then actually being able to enjoy the fireworks would just compound the awesome factor for that. So we would definitely coordinate with the resort on that.
And the fee for fireworks are free. So would you also offer the lights as free? How would you do that?
That's still something we need to kind of hash out, because I don't want to create a situation in which you have to pay a fee to kind of go into some of these areas where we're doing the lights. So it's not going to be the kind of thing where it's like a closed off, like ice castles, there's a gate and you have to pay a fee to go into the ice castles. That's not what I'm trying to produce here. A good piece of this show is to provide free access to, like, the lights that we put across the bridge and the paths that we put along the beaches, and that kind of stuff is not what we're trying to get revenue from. What we'd need to get revenue from is, say, and I'm not proposing this, but this is an example of the types of things we're thinking about. Say there was as you were walking around the hockey rink, there would be a gate that would lead into an area of this show that was more of an event. And that would be where we would have things like, not necessarily a tractor pull, but things like a tractor pulling some train cars, a controlled situation with a attendant. We would work out all the safety issues with the public safety department and everything like that. But you might charge a ticket to get into that area of the light show and to participate in some activities that would be going on in there as kind of an appendage to the show. But the spirit of the show as bringing beauty and activity and warmth to the winter season in the downtown area, that would remain, and that would not be something that would be getting charged, that we would be charging for.
Understood. And one more question. You'll make sure there's enough room for the groomer when during ski season?
Yes. So we and our lights installer, worked in close concert with Ian over at the Adventure Center to discuss his grooming paths where he puts paths, how we would put these things in place so as to not interfere with their operations. And that was pretty successful this year. We only had one minor damage that was done to a couple of lights by the groomer as it was going across the bridge. That was the only incident that happened interfering with the groomers this year. And it was an easy fix. We just went and replaced that strand of lights. So aside from that, it did not interfere with their grooming operations this winter. And people were actually able to cross-country ski through the lights. And some people actually, we had limited, it's always an issue every year, my understanding, keeping people from walking on the groomed path. But the lit paths that we put off the groomed areas actually provided people with another option, pedestrians with another option to kind of walk down the paths instead of walking through the groomed things. So it also provided a little bit of a barrier for, not that it kept people off the ice entirely, but it created a little bit of a barrier for kids going out onto the ice, which was beneficial. So it actually worked out quite well with the groomers and all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think it's great that you have a lumen report when it comes to doing your application. I think it would be a good thing to include to help with any concerns.
And just to take me just 2 seconds to go over the results of the lumen report, we took a lumen reading at the intersection of Lost Pass and Valley Road with our lights off, 7 lumens. With our lights on, 7 lumens. No impact of lumens at that distance. We took a reading in the Town Square parking lot across the street from Town Square, over by like that parking lot, like where the skate park and stuff is. 50 lumens with our lights off, 50 lumens with our lights on. Valley Road Bridge, up on the bridge, 5 lumens with our lights off, 5 lumens with our lights on. Golden Eagle's back door, no lights. When our lights were on, the bridge lights were off. Our lights caused the light sensor of the bridge lights to turn off. With our lights off and the bridge lights lit, 330 lumens at Golden Eagle's back door. With our lights on and the bridge lights off, 160 lumens at Golden Eagle's back door, less. The hockey rink field, we started at 20 feet away from our lights, 20 feet, 20 lumens with our lights off. It's very dark over there. There's not much in the way of lights over there normally. With our lights on, 20 feet from the hockey rink, 130 lumens. That's the only place with any real measurable lumen impact. And I walked that area with our lights. I've walked that area with our lights off. It's pitch dark. It's hazardous. With our lights on, that 130 lumens made it a safer walk, less likely to slip on ice, hurt oneself, trip on something. So that was actually beneficial there. 100 feet from the hockey rink out in the field, our lights off, 10 lumens, our lights on, 25 lumens. So you can see that a difference of 80 feet has a significant reduction in the lumen effects of these lights. So not much of an impact. I take the Golden Eagle's back door lumen reading without our lights of 330. None of the readings we took anywhere else came anywhere close to that. So I don't think these lights had the glare or light intrusion impacts that some folks were concerned with when we talked about this back in November. It proved out to not be an issue. We also got no light complaints as far as light intrusion or glare.
Yeah, that's great. Like I said, just include that written thing in your application, and that'll help allay concerns at the end of number 2.
Wendy, can I ask a question here?
Please do.
Sean, I seem to remember that last year, the period of time that you were going to be putting that light up was someplace between January 22nd to February 22nd, somewhere around that period of time. What was the actual time frame that you ended up using those lights?
We started installation last year, or this show, on January 15th, and we shut them off on March 15th. We would like to, well, where I will have more advanced notice and more, it's an earlier start on the approval process for next year. We are going to consider asking to expand that in one direction or the other, or both. Probably to December. I think it would be beneficial to have this over Christmas. And I think March 15th was a good stop time, although I did get comments from people that they wished they had gone a little bit longer. I guess we would consider that as we try to put together our plan for next year, but that's not to say we will be asking for more. So I would say off the cuff, we probably will be looking for an early December through March timeframe for the lights. And it may also be that the lights, the static display of lights, like what we had, may be a different timeline than the activity part of it. That might be for a shorter term, but we're not sure. If we did put up like a little subsection with activities, that might not run that long.
Yeah.
Whereas the lights themselves would, ideally.
As a comment for like tying in with other activities, you might look at the end of November, that Thanksgiving weekend, since that's typically when things kick off,
Yes.
if possible.
Yes, I think that would be a good idea.
Great. Any other comments or questions for Sean?
Have a comment. I would prefer that this did not become another skateboard park where every year we've got to approve this. So at some point in time, and I'm not sure it's next year, but you've got to apply for the whole thing so that you can get the right to do this forever.
Yes, I agree. And I agree with also that this next one might not be that time, because I feel like as we add activities and stuff to this, if so approved, I would want to see how it went. Did that work out? Did it cause any problems once we started doing activities? And then maybe after next year's show, when we've had that, then maybe we can do a more permanent annual approval. So yeah, I would also like to have that perpetuity at some point. Thank you.
All right. Well, anything else for Sean? Great. Well, as an individual, Sean, I thought it was a nice addition. So I look forward to seeing what's coming next, and looking forward to being able to see it planned out well in advance. It'll be a bonus.
Thank you.
All right. And thanks for taking the time today.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sean.
Look forward to
Thank
summer
you.
blooms coming
Bye.
soon to a valley near you. Geraniums everywhere.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so next in our new business, we had applicant escrow accounts from last month was brought up. So now, Tara, you had mentioned this. Would you mind giving the board a little overview of how this would work?
Yeah, so if you require applicants to pay some upfront toward my time in the categories that you're gonna engage me in, whether it starts with a preliminary design review or submission of a final application, if you require them to pay as they go, it ensures there's no cost to the town, and also no surprises for the applicant. I mean,
So
technically, you should be asking me for an estimate and giving them an opportunity to decide if they want to pay that or withdraw their application. And if they overpay, you reimburse that. So I think part of what you wanted to do was check in with Mark on kind of the town office ability to administer those funds.
right. So, but in theory, as someone came with an application and it fit, the size in which it was appropriate to get some feedback from you, Nick or whoever at the town offices would direct them towards you, but also have like an estimate of what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, I could give you some kind of blanket, here's what I'd suggest you require as part of the application fee to get started. I could put some of those numbers together based on what other applications have taken.
Okay. Mark, what are your thoughts on that?
No problem administering that. If we have a list, minor site plan review, and kind of a general amount, or, like Tara said, she'll just look back and see what it's cost for plans review or whatever. Then it'll be easy to come up with a number that we can put into escrow.
Yeah, I believe last month or the month before, it's all blurring, we had talked about having Tara's assistance with not with minor site plan reviews, but with the more involved.
Yep.
So in theory, it shouldn't be too many price points.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's going to make more sense to chart a fee that covers the first step and then have them pay as they go, because it costs more. there's a sad but point. If they don't follow your regulations and they have to come back numerous times, it costs them more. So, I'm reluctant to give a number that's here's what a major subdivision would cost, or here's what a site plan would cost, as opposed to here's what it would cost to look over the submission and give comments on how it would comply with the regulations, kind of the get started step. Because if they make it drag out, then it costs more.
And it'll be nice if we have that number, and then we can always put a disclaimer in that if it costs if legal review is necessary or something like that, it'll be based on the hourly cost to the town. I mean, I think we can write it in a way that they'll be put on notice that this might not be the only cost to them. We'll make it clear to them what they're getting.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense, because
and we don't have any markup to that. It's going to be our actual costs. There's no administrative fee associated with this from the town standpoint, because that's why we have the staff that we have, is to do this work. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would make sense. Do we need an official vote on this since it's a procedural change? Just a sense of the meeting. Is everyone in agreement with moving forward with this?
Michael Pat, yes.
Yep.
Nancy?
Yes, I said yes and unmute.
Oh, okay, good. Bill Larson?
I'm in favor as long as you use some common sense in terms of applying this.
Okay. John?
John Racine, yes.
Phil Spence?
Yes, ma'am.
Rob?
Yep.
Great. And I agree as well. So good. That'll be, so Mark, what would you need, like from Tara, like a menu, so to speak, of,
I'll work it out with her. Yeah, Tara, we can just put together a menu type.
great. Fantastic. All right. Even though, I want to move on to the master plan regroup, even though we haven't had our town meeting to approve of the funds for having Tara's assistance in rewriting, whether or not it's approved, we still need to move forward with the master plan. So I just wanted to get everyone regrouping with your subcommittees. It's probably time to reassess where you're at, review what work's been done, just get the ball rolling. And then hopefully next month we will hear that the town voted and we will have Tara's assistance in rewriting. But I just thought it'd be a good time for everyone to start to remind ourselves, shake off the dust, so to speak, remind ourselves of where we're at with all the different committees for the master plan.
Would it be helpful if I sent out the draft work plan again that I sent to in September? It kind of, I mean, it was a financially a worst case scenario. It did the details as if I picked it up where it was left, but I think each of the groups and individuals needs to take a close look at it and identify things that they feel a committee could do or that they would volunteer to do.
Yeah.
Cut the town's cost.
That would be great. Thank you. I trust everyone remembers which committees you're on. There wasn't any selective amnesia here. Okay, well, if there are any, if you're moving forward and you have any questions, reach out to me, please. But I will assume otherwise that everyone remembers your group and you'll, again, like before, work with Mark or Nick at the town to help set up Zoom meetings. Or it's getting nice, I guess you can start to meet outside, whatever each group is comfortable with doing. All right. And then, as I just alluded to, wanted to start to talk a little bit about how we're moving forward with Zoom versus in-person meetings. Don't want to ask for anyone to put out personal medical information if you're uncomfortable doing so in a public format, but vaccines are much more available and are moving forward. In the back of my mind, I was wondering how the board would feel about a June goal of going back to meeting in person. Are there reservations with that? How's everyone feeling?
I've had my 2 shots. It's Mike Capella. I've had my 2 shots and am 2 weeks after the second. So whatever the board wants is fine with me.
I mean, maybe it's just my
I like the
observation,
June.
but it seems like we're getting a lot more people by doing it online. And I'm not sure, is there any real benefit to being in person?
I will say that I feel like the dynamic among our group is a bit different. Better or worse, I'm not sure, but I do feel like it's different. And perhaps it's worth looking at a hybrid.
Yeah.
As opposed to just strictly in person. How has that been working, Mark, for the select board? I know because the board itself is in person, right?
No, no, they're not yet.
All right, I can speak for the school board.
Okay.
The school board has done hybrid, and we have had as many as 45 or 50, I think, Mark. We've had a tremendous number of people calling into the Zoom, even though we are in person at the school. So hybrid has worked very well there.
Okay.
I believe that one of the reasons we're able to do the Zoom meetings is because the state legislature allowed it. So, you know, I think we should encourage the state
No, 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 no.
legislature to continue the ability to do Zoom meetings for the public.
It's under the governor's emergency order, so we get that authority 3 weeks at a time. And I think Mark has his hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
So right now, we are operating under the emergency order, like Tara said. However, there is legislation regarding remote meetings and changing RSA 91A and the requirements for the majority of the board to be in the same place during a meeting, okay? So the way the law is right now, if a majority of the board is disregarding the governor's emergency orders, if a majority of the board is present at the meeting, then other members of the board can participate and vote in the meeting, okay? The new proposed legislation that's before the House right now, in fact, I think they're voting on it today or tomorrow, would it would drop the requirement for the majority of the board to be in the same location. So basically it would make, as a matter of law, what the governor's order says, in that you can participate in a public meeting the way we're doing right now, okay? I don't know if that's going to pass. We'll have to wait and see. So I think you should wait until maybe next month and have this conversation, because the legislature will have acted on that bill, and you'll know where you stand with the governor's order. The selectmen are not meeting in person yet. Town buildings are limited to 2 people at a time at the front counter, and the other town buildings are not open to the public. So we are still operating under the emergency order. It is an agenda item for next week for the selectmen as well. Okay, about what they're going to do. So we'll have to wait and see.
All right, so a bit premature for this month, but we will revisit it next month. Okay. Looks like we've gotten through our listed items. For the committee reports, Town Core Group has not met. Mark, the TAP application was submitted, right? And when do we expect to hear back on that?
No, actually, the review by North Country, so it's a 2-step process. The regional, the applications for their region, and the North Country Council has their review and prioritization meeting next week. And then once that is done, that recommendation from the Planning Commission goes to DOT, and then DOT has a review panel that will prioritize all of the projects across the state and decide who gets funding. So we have applied for the TAP grant for the road project, Valley Road, Tecumseh and Snows Brook. So we'll see. Additionally, we have other grant opportunities that we are pursuing for the road project with the pedestrian and bike path and the wastewater treatment plant. And we've also submitted a application for them to be considered by Representative Custer as part of the community project funding initiative, which is basically a return of earmarks to the federal budget. So both projects have been submitted for consideration of funding through that.
Mark, it's Mike Capella. I have a question. What is the likelihood of hearing with regard to a road grant prior to town meeting?
Zero.
That was my guess as well,
Process,
but okay.
the application
Yeah,
process. goes
that was
through
my feeling as well. Yeah, okay.
Alrighty. Anything for the Conservation Commission, John?
Hi, so there's actually nothing more to say than we had from last time. We talked, and the meeting that we're going to get together is April 19th. So in a few days, we'll have some more information for our next meeting. But that's all I have for you.
Okay. Any other new business that any board member wants to bring up?
I do have a question, and it's probably for Mark to answer, but it's in regards to what I call a hairpin turn by Valley Run. And that's becoming a really, really dangerous part of Waterville Valley. Is there anything we can do temporarily to do something with that? And what I'm talking about, Mark, is when cars come by, they try and avoid those potholes. And there's pedestrians always walking there. So people are going over the line into the other lane to go around. It's really, I think, a very dangerous spot. Any comments on that?
The road crew is in the process of filling potholes now.
Okay, but could you take a look at it yourself, because it's really bad.
By Valley Run? Oh,
Yep.
on Tecumseh Road.
Yep.
Okay, yep, I'll look at it.
And just, yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So our next meeting, be our regular meeting in May, the 13th, 8 o'clock. And if they're, oh, Mark?
Yeah, I just would like under communications, if any planning board member would like to attend the zoning conference on Saturday, May 15th. I know Nick has sent out emails to you with information about that. If you have not gotten back to him yet, please get back to him. We need either him or to Sharon at townofwv@watervillevalley.com to get your name and email in so we can get you registered. We will do the registrations from here and get that done for you, but please let either Nick or Sharon know.
Great, thank you for that.
And that is, Mark, as I remember, that is a Zoom conference.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wendy, can I bring up something?
Please do.
I'm not sure how important this is, and it may be a nothing issue, but we're looking at the condominium project that's adjacent to Moose Run subdivision, and where there's been quite a bit of controversy to the point where there's been lawsuits threatened against either side, all sides, and where the Moose Run Homeowners Association has opined in a couple of different ways, one from the treasurer representing, who claims to represent the people of the association, and also the president of the association have commented on it. I'm wondering if the board might find it a good idea to divulge if any of the board members are members of that association. It may not be an issue, but I think it should be addressed one way or another. And at this point, before it goes too much further.
Okay. Just so for clarification, or would you think that any members Are you looking for recusals or just so that we're all on the same page?
I think it's just so that it's brought up. I think that it's not necessary for a recusal, but it probably would eventually come up if it does get into some sort of legal thing.
Well, I think I already mentioned that I live in Moose Run, although I'm not a neighbor or a butter or view. I can't see the development or the new development part from where I live.
Well, then, okay, if it's a statement, make it for the record, and then I think it's fine.
Okay. Great. All right. Anything else for us for today?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
John Racine, I would second that.
Alrighty. All those in favor? Nancy,
Nancy Knight, yes.
Mike,
Mike Capel, yes.
Bill Larson,
Yeah,
Wendy Rathgaber, yes. John,
John Racine, yes.
Bill Spence,
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thanks, Wendy.
Bye, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy. Thanks, Chair.
Oh, Mark?
Wendy, you're gonna stay on for a
Yeah.
minute?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna step off the live view here. You can step off the YouTube. Wendy and I just need to talk for a second. Yes, ma'am.
So, as far as, oh gosh.